Good day, everybody. I hope that you're well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 2 English lesson on sentences, fragments, and run-ons. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 2. Then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of sentences, fragments, and run-ons. All right, so our chapter is sentences, fragments, and run-ons. Our subject is English Language Arts. Grade 2. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on is it a complete sentence or a fragment? And is it a complete sentence or a run-on? All right. So when it comes to sentences, fragments, and run-ons, right? A sentence is a group of words that forms a complete thought, right? So that is a sentence. It completes it's a group of words and that forms a complete thought. And with a sentence has both a subject and a sentence has a verb. So once again, we said that a sentence is a group of words and it forms a complete thought. And a sentence has a subject and it has a verb, meaning it has both, right? Both subject and a verb, meaning subject, which tells us who or what is doing something, doing the action, can be a person, can be an animal, can be a thing, right? And then we have the verb, which is the action that the subject is doing, the action that the person, the animal, or the thing is doing. All right. And if we look at an example, right, an example of a sentence, which is a complete sentence that has a subject and it has a verb, it is my friends walk along the path, right? Which means that my friends, or just friends, let's say my friends, which is our subject. I'm going to put your subject. So now we need to say what the friends are doing. The friends, they walk, and walk is our verb, along the path. All right. And then we have a fragment, right? And before we go on to the fragment, as we look at the example, right, of our sentence that we have over here, which says, my friends walk along the path, right? We said my friends is the subject, so that means it's the person or people that is doing the action. And the verb walk, it tells us what the person or the people is doing, right? Because our subject is either the person, it is speak, either the person, an animal, or it's a thing. Whereas walk, for example, our verb, it tells us the action that the person, animal, or thing is doing. So once you have both subject and a verb within your sentence, and then it means that basically is a group of words and it forms a complete thought, right? That is a sentence. It has a complete thought, right? And then we have a sentence fragment, right? So now we're coming on to a fragment or a sentence fragment. And a sentence fragment is a group of words that does not express a complete thought, right? So we said a sentence expresses a complete thought, but a sentence fragment, it does not express a complete thought. So with a fragment, right, a sentence fragment, it is usually either missing a verb or it is usually missing a subject. So which means that in that sentence, either they're not talking about a subject, they're not making mention of a subject, they're not making mention of a person, they're not making mention of a thing, right? Or they're not even making mention of the action that the person or thing is doing. That is correct. So if we say my friends are playing soccer, then friend, yes, is the subject, beautiful. Playing is the verb, well done, and that is correct. So which means that sentence that you made, which is my friends are playing soccer, that is a that is basically a sentence, right? Because it expresses a complete thought. It has a subject and it has a verb. But now, if, for example, a sentence, right, is maybe missing a subject, maybe they're not telling you who is doing the action, or it is missing a verb, they're not telling us what the person is doing, then we call that a sentence fragment. All right. And when it comes to a sentence fragment, all right. So if we look at an example, right, of a sentence fragment, if we look at the sentence is knows the answer. Knows the answer. All right, so if we say knows the answer, knows, right, is our verb. But now, can you see? They're not telling us who knows the answer. They're only telling us knows the answer, but they're not telling us who knows the answer, which means that this is a sentence fragment because it is missing the subject. It is not telling us who knows the answer. Because remember, in order for us to show a complete sentence, right, it means that you need to have a subject and you need to have a verb. So we need to say who knows the answer. We must either say that Winnie knows the answer, B Funks know the answer, or somebody knows the answer, right? But here they're not telling us who knows the answer. They're only saying knows the answer, right? Which means that there's no subject within that sentence. So if there's no subject within that sentence, we say that's a sentence fragment. Yes, that is correct. My friends are making art, right? Then with my friends, yes, is the subject. Making is the verb. Making is the verb because it's something that they are doing, right? So if somebody is doing something, that is the action, that is the verb. All right. So now if we look at the next one, it says, who knows it says, the bright red car. So the bright red car. So here they are talking about the car, right? But they're not telling us what the car is doing. So they're telling us about the car, but they're not telling us what the car is doing. So which means that whatever that's missing here is our verb. Because remember, we said that within a completed sentence, we need to have both a subject as well as a verb. So if they're only saying the bright red car, they're only describing the car. which is our subject. And bright red is like them describing basically the subject, which is the car, which is the thing. But there's no verb which tells us what the red car is doing, right? All right, so that is a sentence fragment. So once again, a sentence fragment, right? It is a group of words and it does not express a complete thought. A sentence fragment is either missing a subject or it's missing a verb, right? But a sentence has a subject and it has a verb. All right. Then we have run-on sentences, right? So when we have a run-on sentence, a run-on sentence, right? It is made up of two sentences that should be standing on its own. So a run-on sentence, it is made up of two sentences that should stand alone, right? For example, it says, I knocked on the door, it opened, right? So if you look specifically at that sentence, it says, I knocked on the door, it opened. So this is a run-on sentence, meaning that this one sentence should have been two sentences and it should have been standing on its own because it should have been. I'm going to divide it here. I'm going to separate it here. It should have been I knocked on the door, because if that sentence were to be on its own, right? I is our subject. I'm going to put S for subject. Knocked is our verb, V for verb, right? And then if you look at the other sentence, right, which is basically within that same sentence, it says it opened, right? It being our subject, opened being our verb. And if you look at both of that sentences, as we can see, it is basically one sentence, but that sentence should have been two sentences and it should have been standing on its own. But yet it is one sentence, which means that we call that a run-on sentence. And a run-on sentence, it is made up of two sentences, and that should have been on its own, right? And we can fix a run-on sentence. We can fix a run-on sentence by separating it like we did, where, for example, we say, I knocked on the door, full stop, like period, sorry, right? Because that is a sentence on its own. And then the second sentence is, it opened, capital letter for it, opened, period. So that is how we can fix a run-on sentence, by separating it into two sentences, because it's supposed to be standing on its own. It's supposed to be standing alone. We add a period, and then the second sentence starts with a capital letter at the beginning of the sentence, right? And there we have also an example. All right, so now we're going on to aplusstudents.ca. We're going to do our tutorial lesson, and then we're also going to do our test. And the first lesson that we're going to focus on is it a complete sentence or a fragment, right? All right, so once again, we see the sentence is a group of words that forms a complete thought and it has both subject and a verb, right? And then we see the sentence fragment is either missing a subject or it's missing a verb and it does not express a complete thought. All right, so now let's go to our test. All right, so we need to say which is a sentence fragment. Remember, we said a sentence fragment, it's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. So, which one is missing a subject or verb? A sentence fragment draws a picture, a pretty picture, option one, or we looked for the kitten. Look again. Remember a sentence fragment. It's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. If we look at option two, it says we looked for the kitten. We is the subject, looked is the verb. So if you look at that sentence, is that a sentence fragment or is that a sentence? Because remember, they want us to say, to identify the sentence fragment. A sentence fragment does not have or does not express a complete thought. It's either missing a subject, meaning it maybe does not have a subject, or it does not have a verb. Like look at option one. Yes, so option one is correct, right? The reason why option one is a sentence fragment is because it says draws a picture, right? Is option one telling us who is drawing the picture? So option one does not tell us who is drawing the picture, which means that it's missing a subject, right? So which means that our sentence fragment is option one. So well done. Option one is correct. All right, so now which one is a complete sentence? Remember, a sentence has both subject, a person or thing doing the action, and it has a verb. So it has got subject and a verb. Is it option one, pets the two cats? Or Martin plays with the dolls? So is it option one, pets the two cats? Or option two, Martin plays with the dolls? Which option is correct? Yes, all right. So if we were to choose the correct option, then we would say option two is a sentence because it has a subject, which is Martin, and it has a verb, which is plays. It's telling us what Martin is doing. All right, so well done. Option two is correct because that's a complete thought. All right, we need to say which one is a complete sentence again. Remember, it has a subject and it has a verb, right? Is it option one? Mr. Bullock will buy a cake, or option two, cups, forks, and spoons. Which option is correct? So option one or option two? Yes, so which means that if we were to choose the correct one, option one is a complete sentence because Mr. Bullock is our subject and buy is our verb, right? So well done. All right, let's look at the next one, which is a complete sentence, right? So a complete sentence once again. It is the bird was brown and black. Or do we say the box under the stairs? We need to choose the sentence that expresses a complete sentence that has a subject and it has a verb. All right, then if we were to choose, oh, some is saying option one, some is saying option two. Which one is correct? Option one or option two? And if we were to choose the correct one, we would say option one, right? Because the bird or bird is our subject and was is our verb. So option one is correct, not option two. All right, let's do the last one and then we're going on to the next lesson. We need to identify the sentence fragment. Remember, a sentence fragment is either missing a subject or it is missing a verb. It says went to school early, or option two that says Kate puts eggs in a pan. Which sentence is, or which option is either missing a subject or it's missing a verb? All right, and if we were to identify a sentence fragment, then it's option one, right? Because it only says went to school early. It doesn't say who went to school early, which means that it does not have a subject. All right, lovely. Now we're going on to the next lesson, which is it a complete sentence or a run-on? Remember, we said the sentence has both subject and it has a verb, whereas a run-on sentence, remember we said a run-on sentence, it's basically made up of two sentences that should have been standing on its own. So once you either separate that two sentences and then you can once you separate those two sentences, right, and then it will basically be able to stand on its own, right? And that is basically how you can fix a run on sentence. And we made an example by I knocked on the door, it opened. But if we fix that run on sentence by letting the two sentences stand on its own, by separating it, and then we say I knocked on the door, period. And then the second sentence starts with a capital letter, it opened. All right, let us go to our test, right, where we are going to identify a sentence or a run on sentence, right? So we need to say which is a run on sentence, which means that it can be two sentences that should have been standing on its own. Is it option one, which says, I clean my room, it takes me 10 minutes? Or option two, which says, the elephant's trunk is long and gray? We need to identify the run on sentence within. Is it option one or option two? So, which one is a run on sentence? All right, so yes, option one is a run on sentence because if we were to separate that sentence, right, and then it would be I clean my room, period. It takes me 10 minutes. So we can separate that one sentence into two sentences. Well done. Option one is correct. All right. Which sentence shows a complete sentence? Remember, a complete sentence has both subject and it has a verb. Is it option one, which says Robin and Evan had a picnic in the park? Or option two, dinner is ready, we are having chicken? Option one or option two? Ooh, some is saying option two, some is saying option one. Which one is correct? Remember a complete sentence, it has a subject and it has a verb. Look at option one. It says Robin and Evan, that is our subject, right? Had a picnic in the park. Then our option two is dinner is ready. We are having chicken. That is two sentences in one sentence. So which option shows a complete sentence? Option one or option two? Try again. Remember, Robin and Evan, we can say they had a picnic in the park. Option two, we can separate by saying, oh, sorry, it is a run on sentence. So, yes, option two. Oh, option one. Because remember, it's a complete sentence. Sorry, option one is correct. Sorry. So, option one, and the reason why I made, sorry, I was looking at this here on top. Option one, guys, because remember, option one, whether we say Robin and Evan, right? Robin and Evan is our subject, right? That's doing something. So if we were to, instead of saying Robin and Evan, we could have said they, right? So option one was correct. Option one. We need to say what is the run on sentence over here, right? It says, it is dark. It is dark out. We need a flashlight. I think probably it is dark outside. We need a flashlight. Or the tractor's big wheels rolled through the grass. Which one shows a run on sentence? Remember, a run on sentence has basically two sentences in one sentence. So, option one or option two. All right, so yes, we can say option one because option one shows it is dark, right? It is dark outside. We need a flashlight. So that is two sentences in one. So well done. Option one is correct. We need to show a complete sentence. Remember, a complete sentence has a subject and it has a verb because it shows a complete sentence, right? Or complete thought. It says, Bob read a book. It was about big machines, or our town library closes for most holidays. A complete sentence. Bob reads a book. It was about big machines. Or do we say option two? Our town library closes for most holidays. Is it option one or option two? All right, so we will say our correct answer is option two, right? Which is our town library closes for most holidays. All right, a run on sentence. Which sentence shows a run on sentence? It says all birds have two wings and feathers, or option two that shows our train is here, it's time to go. A run on sentence. Remember, a run on sentence is basically a sentence that shows one sentence, but it basically has two complete sentences within that sentence, and we should separate it by basically writing those sentences so they can stand on its own. All right, so option two is correct. Yes, you may, guys, because this is now the end of our lesson. You may leave. Thank you very much for joining the class, and thank you very much for interacting. Right? We said that our chapter is sentences, fragments, and run-ons. We went over what a complete sentence is, and we said a complete sentence has both subject and it has a verb. We said a sentence fragment has it's either missing a subject or a verb. And we said a run on sentence is basically one sentence that has two sentences within that one sentence that should have been standing on its own. Right. But thank you very much for joining the class. You should have a good evening further. Goodbye.